Franny Armstrong, you've made some really significant films that have really impacted our country and wider as well. You did some really important things in terms of McLibel in '97, Drowned Out in 2002, Age of Stupid in 2009, and the 1010 project. You've got other things going on, and I really just want to get a sense of what is it what is it that fires this thing, or fuels this fire?
Yeah.
What's going on now, and give us a bit of an idea of how you got to kind of structure these films. So I saw the video you made with The Guardian, the 10th anniversary of the Age of Stupid release, where you met some of the characters you filmed 9 years ago. How much has actually changed since you made The Age of Stupid? Because for me, I think I see it as being, you were forerunning. There's almost like something prophetic about it. I watched it again very recently, and it still was hugely emotional and challenged me. And yet, I feel like in some respects we're still in the same position. Not much has changed at all. And yet there's like there seems to be something in the atmosphere. Seems to be something.
There is something in the atmosphere. That's the problem.
Yeah. So how are you sort of feeling at the moment? What's going on in terms of the 10-year anniversary and the film itself? What's going on?
So there's about 15 questions in all of that.
Yeah.
I'll start on what fires me, can I?
Yeah, please.
Well, it wasn't filmmaking. I didn't want to be a filmmaker as such. I started because I just heard about the McDonald's libel trial. This is in like 95 or 4 or something, when I first heard about it, which is these two people, one's a postman, one's a gardener, one male, one female, who dared to stand up to McDonald's and fight them in court when everybody else had capitulated, like, the BBC, Channel 4, The Guardian, Sunday Times, Morrissey. They'd all been sued by McDonald's or had legal troubles with McDonald's in the past, and they'd all capitulated and apologised in court. And suddenly these two people, who seemed like they were nobodies but are very much not nobodies, dared to stand up. And I just thought, that's the greatest thing. I mean, I cared about all the issues in the McDonald's libel trial, which is like advertising junk food to kids, unhealthy food, cutting down rainforests, animal welfare. I already cared about all of those things, but suddenly this trial brought them all together with this brilliant human story, David and Goliath story, of these two people standing up. And I just thought, that's my story. I just love that story. How can I help? And then my dad is a filmmaker, and had a little production company. And so I happened to have access to filmmaking equipment. So that's why I made a film, because that was back in the day when people didn't have, they certainly didn't have a camera on their phone because they didn't have a phone, but they also didn't have cameras. Nobody had video cameras of their own because they were so expensive,
Yeah.
But I happened to have access. So I just said to the two people, look, I can access a camera. Shall I make a film for you? And they, and so it all began. And it took 10 years. The trial itself was supposed to take 6 weeks in court. That's what McDonald's lawyer said. And it ended up becoming 3.5 years in court, the longest trial in English history. And then it went on through appeals and going to Europe and all sorts of things. So anyway, I ended up doing 10 years on it, not full time. And there was various versions of the film that came out at various points. So during that epic process, I basically learned to become a filmmaker through trial and error. And in the process, I did fall in love with filmmaking itself. But it was very much about, I want to get that story out. I'm motivated by the brilliance of that story and those two people who dare to stand up. Yeah. And I believe that if others heard that story, they too would dare to stand up. And which proved to be absolutely the case.
Yeah.
In terms of what came from, not the film, but the trial, the film, the big website called McSpotlight around that time. And then from that, there was a complete sea change. All of these issues were, not all of them, but they were minority issues. Veganism was a minority issue. Caring about animal welfare, caring about whether advertising junk food to children was damaging children.
Where your food comes from, generally.
Where your food comes from, how we treat the environment. These were minority issues that a few people talked about, and then they slammed into the mainstream. Thanks to not only, but it was an important part of it. Wow,
that's
and then and it led to Fast Food Nation, Super Size Me, Jamie Oliver and his school dinners, which I love, And, you know, and McDonald's themselves, I mean, I know this because somebody was in a McDonald's internal marketing meeting and they told us, they said that the McDonald's said it was the McLibel trial that changed everything. That's the moment we realised we were, I'm not quoting them exactly, but that's the moment we realised we were in the past and we had to change everything. And you can see that they did. That's when they went organic. That's when they went McCafe and salads and all that. Not that I'm saying...
Go visit McDonald's.
No, I'm not saying that. And I'm also, you know, is that a good thing that we changed them and now, you know, they continue to operate? Because initially after McLibel and everything around it, you know, McDonald's, a lot of stores closed and they closed in... They even left certain countries.
Right, wow.
But then they've reinvigorated with the organic and all that business.
And big time.
Even though their core business remains the same.
Yeah.
Essentially the same.
Sure.
You know, but they, you know, brought in the organic meat or milk or whatever it is that, you know, so. Anyway, so as it turned out, the very first film I made, the first, caused quite a lot of real world change.
Yeah.
And that was extremely
Massively.
Exciting.
And
extremely.
So was it anger? Was it like interest? Or was it interest? Was it just like amazement that these guys were doing it? What is it that you connect with that made you think, right? And did you pick up the camera yourself? Was it
Well, yes, it was the two people who it was an impossible. When they took on McDonald's like that, there was no way they were going to win. And we were all backing them because we just thought it was important. And then we started to see that they were winning small parts of it, you know, and then other people were coming on and, you know, the website McSpotlight came along and then it started getting on the news in a big way.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my God, Mohammed, we're going to move the mountain, you know. And then in the end, the mountain did move. I mean, the idea at the beginning that McDonald's, as a result of this, McDonald's might change, that was out of the question. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So it couldn't have been better, really. Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. Because when people say that McDonald's won the case, I'm like, no. Like, in one sense, they won. In the sense that I think there was 16 points of contention that were being argued about, and Helen and Dave, the two defendants, had to prove that all of those 16 points were true, not the other way round, that McDonald's had to prove they were false.
Yeah.
And to prove that something is true for libel, you have to get first-hand witnesses and primary evidence to, I don't know if that's the word, but anyway, you prove it from primary sources that it is true. If you fail to prove it's true, then the other side has won. It doesn't mean it's not true, it means you failed to prove it. And so Helen and Dave, two people with no resources, failed to prove that in Costa Rica, certain areas of rainforest which had been cut down, you know, the meat that then was grown on that land did then go into the McDonald's chain. I mean, how on earth are they supposed to prove that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So whether or not McDonald's are directly or indirectly responsible for chopping down rainforest has not been proved either way. You know. Sure. So in one sense, you know, Helen and Dave lost. But in the much more important sense, and in the sense that McDonald's care about, Helen and Dave won, because when McDonald's originally sued them, they wanted two things. They wanted to stop, this is what it says in the writ, to stop these allegations being spread further, and damages. That's what McDonald's wanted. Two things. One, to stop the allegations being spread further. I mean, it went global. These were leaflets that were being given out to a few hundred people in North London.
And you show that so well.
And now everybody in the world knows about.
And you've made it free on YouTube. So
well, not even our film, but the issues. You know,
no, for sure.
Healthy eating is now, you know, every school does lessons about it. You know, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And so they catastrophically failed on their attempt to not let these allegations be repeated.
Yeah, for sure.
And the other thing they wanted was damages from Helen and Dave. Not that they really wanted them; they didn't care about the money.
No.
But they also didn't get them. Helen and Dave said we won't pay, and you know, you and McDonald's didn't even try and get they didn't go after the money, you know. Right. They just went, forget it. They did get awarded money at the end, McDonald's. Right. And Helen and Dave said, we'll go to jail rather than pay. Yeah. And McDonald's went, okay, we won't try and get you put in jail because that would not look good. So,
no, not at all.
So McDonald's completely lost on everything that they cared about. So.
And how, like the relationship that you built with them, 10 years is a phenomenal amount of time with anyone.
Yeah.
How important was the relationship? Like
Helen and Dave, you mean?
Yeah, and for them, for them, your relationship with them.
Wait for that door to phone.
Oh, it's fine.
Okay. Well, when I say 10 years, it wasn't 10 years full time. We made the film, it took about 3 years. And then there was about 7 years or 6 years when we weren't doing anything.
Right.
And there was various appeals and things. And then at the end, we met again and re-edited the film, did a new ending, and that was the proper cinema release version.
Yeah.
So it wasn't 10 years. Well, I think our relationship is built on respect. They could, a lot of big production companies approached them at the beginning of the trial wanting to make a documentary, and I think it was 8, and they all tried to get commissions and nobody would commission them, bearing in mind that both BBC and Channel 4 had legal troubles with McDonald's themselves at this point.
Yeah.
So they couldn't get commission.
The 2 big players who would otherwise commission it.
Yeah. And they were the biggest players by far then. There wasn't all these little ones, and there was also no other, there was no YouTube, or people didn't make a documentary just without a broadcaster at that point.
No.
Not nobody, but almost nobody. Anyway, so then all the other production companies dropped out, and that's how I got the gig, really, because nobody else would do it,
Yeah.
without money. And in fact, it was Dave, the McLibel defendant, who said the line to me which changed my life, which was, "Why does not having any money mean you can't make a film?" And it was like, that's true, actually. And that's how so I ended up, a family friend gave me £1,000. And that's pretty much what we made the film on.
Wow.
4 years.
Cool.
But we then got another as time went by, we got another source of money, which was we started selling our footage to news stations, because the news stations would contact Helen and Dave and say, we're doing this piece about the trial. Could we come and film you walking into court? That's what they, Yeah. And then they would say, no, you can't, but this person's got footage you can buy. And so we would sell that not very regularly, but, we made bits and bobs of money doing that.
So you're having to be entrepreneurial, even with that first... So the whole thing wasn't, I've been to film school.
Oh, my God, no.
I know how to use a camera. Right, where's the story?
Yeah. I did, initially, I had one friend who was a cameraman, and I said to him, will you help? And he said, yeah. And then he got his friends, sound recorders, whatever, to help. And so at the beginning, we would always have a little crew, all volunteers, of course. Not volunteers, deferred. We did deferred payment scheme, and I wrote down every day that everybody did, and in the end the film was a big success, and I did pay everybody back. They were like, whoa, awesome. 8 years later you're paying me for 4 days work, brilliant. Of course they were all happy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But then after sometimes I couldn't find a crew, I just thought, I'll just do it myself, and learned how to use the camera. And as soon as I started using it, I was like, hang on a minute, this is the fun part. I've been doing all the organising and the schlepping and the carrying, because we're all really heavy, massive batteries and all that.
Yeah. And
then handing the camera to somebody else. I'm like, no, hang on a minute. So then I learned to shoot myself, yeah.
And that, so I didn't realise then, you learned, so all of the stuff that's written about you, and you pioneered crowdfunding in a lot of ways, you kind of learnt it on this gig,
it started
right?
at McLibel, I mean, that was a classic deferred payment, like we haven't got any money, but we'll pay you later. And then we did. I mean, it's not a classic deferred, because we did pay most deferred.
Short films don't expect it.
Yeah,
it's a promise that doesn't get delivered. But,
exactly.
But so then with Age of Stupid, what was it that, because how old would I have been? Like 16. So I was quite young, probably a McDonald's goer when it was happening, the actual case.
McLibel, right? Yeah.
Yeah, McLibel.
Yeah.
And I can totally see why you were passionate and wanted to get involved in that.
Yeah.
What was it about Age of Stupid? What was the tipping point? What was the thing that, in the same way we're talking about fueling your fire?
Yeah.
What was it for this?
Well, I always thought, ever since I heard in school about what was called the greenhouse effect.
Yep.
Which must have been mid-80s.
Yeah.
As soon as I heard that, I can picture the scene of it was a biology lesson for some reason, I can picture the scene of learning about it, and as soon as I heard, I thought, well, that's extremely important.
Yeah.
I didn't think that is the issue of my generation, but I just thought, that is extremely important. And I was kind of surprised that they taught us about it, this woman taught us about it, and then we just went on to another lesson, and nobody else seemed to...
Well, it was CFCs, really, wasn't it?
No, it was greenhouse effect.
Oh, okay.
It was greenhouse effect, and no, it was just the basics,
right.
The green.
Yeah, sure.
Greenhouse gases in the atmosphere warming, the UV light, and it can't escape, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, so really from that moment on, I thought this is extremely important. And then when I became a filmmaker, I just thought I've got to do something about climate change, as it had become known by then.
Yeah.
But I just didn't have a good idea for how to do it, and there was a lot of documentaries about it. Even in the 90s and the zeros, like, talking heads, scientists explaining how it worked, I must have seen 5 of them or something like that at that point.
Yeah.
And there was no appetite whatsoever amongst commissioners or anything for more documentaries like that. Absolutely not.
Right.
And so it was actually watching the Steven Soderbergh film Traffic. I don't know if you've seen that. That gave me the idea for Age of Stupid, because that is a drama, and it's about the international drugs trade.
Yeah.
And it has, I don't know, 5 or 6 characters in it, all human stories on all different sides of the drugs trade. Like somebody's a dealer, somebody's a user, somebody's a corrupt politician, whatever. And you just follow these 5 stories. Towards the end, they come together. And at the end of the film, you know more about the international drugs trade than if you'd watched 1 million documentaries and read 1,000 reports.
Yeah, for sure.
And I just thought that is the structure for climate change.
Got it.
Just find people all around the world, different ages, different types of people.
Yeah. With
brilliant individual, fantastic human narratives.
Yeah.
On all different sides.
Yeah.
And then come together, and then that'll be the best, that'll be the ideal documentary. So that's what we did it took us about 3 or 4 years to research it all, find the people, film their stories, edit it, and then we had a rough cut of an edit of that documentary as just described.
Yeah. And
showed it to people and friends and that, and everybody who was really into climate change and really up on it thought it was brilliant. Mm-hmm. They were like, it's so subtle the way this person links to that person and blah blah. And people who were not up on climate change were just like, why am I watching these unrelated people? Yeah. Why should I care about this person? What's this person got to do with that person? And that the links, I don't know, it just didn't really work. It
assumed too much knowledge,
I don't know if it's that. I think maybe it was too subtle, yeah.
Clever.
Maybe. I don't know about that. I think it was too niche. It was going to appeal to people who already cared about climate change, and that was not our key audience. So then it was back to the drawing board, and it was really awful because we'd taken all these people's money to make this,
right?
And we'd had made it, and it wasn't very good. God. So then
it's so horrible.
Yeah,
feeling.
Horrible. Yeah, it was horrible. Yeah, but other people in the team were like, it's done. Put it out. That's it.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, no, I think there's something missing. And then it took months, honestly, for myself. I would meet the editor, because he lives near me and he was working on other jobs, but we would meet for breakfast 3 times a week and trying to come up with ideas and just trying to work out what, and we had all sorts of ridiculous ideas until we finally came up with the idea of it should be a drama segment, a drama strand set in the future, looking back at our characters, our documentary characters.
Right.
So that was the big breakthrough. But then the first thing we thought was it should be the next generation in the future, teenagers. And if you watch the making of documentary, which is on YouTube, you can see the test version of this we did with me and the assistant editor playing the teenagers. It was only a test, but you can see how bad it is. And again, so we did that. We did a test, we filmed it, we cut it into the documentary, and we did a screening actually at the Curzon Soho, God knows why. Anyway, so on a massive screen, 200, not sold out, to our funders and our crew, about 200 people.
Right.
That was another disaster. And so then everybody was saying, not everybody, but the general feeling was it doesn't work at all, which it didn't. But again, my editor and me and other people, we were trying to analyse it, and eventually we worked out it wasn't the idea of the future that was wrong, it was the idea of the next generation.
Right. Because
these teenagers in the future, all they can say is, we hate you.
Yeah.
You destroyed everything. You took everything for yourselves and have left nothing for us. We hate you. So who wants to go and see a film in which they're being told that they're hated by teenagers? Do you know what I mean? That's like the worst. That's the worst film ever.
But how prophetic is that?
Well, yeah. Now the teenagers are here.
And they're saying that.
Of course they are. Anyway, of course they are. Then I know what you're saying, but then anyway, so then after that terrible screening, we then thought it's not the future, it's the teenagers. So let's make it, instead of the next generation, make it my generation.
Yeah.
How will we feel when we're old? And we look back and we realise that we could have saved everything and everyone, and we didn't.
Yeah. How
will we feel? And so it will be about regret and sorrow, and that's a much better feeling for a film than hatred. So then we had that idea. Then it was like, okay, we need an old person, and there's one thing I don't regret, but I have mixed feelings about when I watch Age of Stupid now, and it was something we discussed, which is, should it be a woman?
Right.
Because we'd already got one old white man in the film, the French mountain guide.
Yeah, sure.
So, and also I'm female, the producer's female, so if it was us speaking, it should really be a woman in the future. But then I just love Pete Postlethwaite. I just love Pete Postlethwaite.
Yeah, wow.
And so I was thinking it should be a woman, and thinking about possible actresses.
Yeah.
I mean, now I can say Judi Dench as if that was a possibility, but realistically, that was not a possibility.
Then, right.
No. But the reason Pete agreed to do it is because he was passionately into climate change. I didn't know that. I just Googled him.
Right.
I just Googled Pete Postlethwaite climate change, and bang, all these things came up.
Yeah.
Including him fighting with his local council to get a wind turbine.
Right.
To get planning permission for a wind turbine. So when I read that, I just thought he might do it. Yeah. So that's how we ended up. So I still don't know. I mean, Pete is so brilliant. I love Pete so much, and he was so fantastic for the film in terms of he did so much press for it and promotion for it. And
right. Yeah.
on the other hand, it probably should have been a woman. So. And what do you think? Should it have been a man or a woman?
I probably think now.
Yeah.
It should be a woman. Yeah. Then probably I think it was right. It felt right.
He was so right, wasn't he?
He was absolutely perfect.
Of course he was.
And he fit the I'm on my own thing.
Yes,
incredibly
but then a woman could do.
Yeah, sure.
There's plenty of brilliant actresses, aren't there?
And interestingly, but not interestingly, men's voices convert a lot better than women's.
Convert?
As in, people are more interested and they'll more likely follow something if it's narrated or a voiceover by a woman.
That might...
by a man, sorry.
That might be true, or maybe that's conditioning.
It's probably conditioning, but it's also true. It's some horrible Google thing that I remember working with YouTube on.
Right.
But no, it's interesting now. If you were to remake it, you would cast
a woman.
Well,
now we might be able to cast Judi Dench or Helen Mirren or somebody like that,
Yeah, for sure.
Or Emma Thompson.
Yeah.
She's not old enough, anyway. Let's not discuss how old everybody is.
No.
But anyway.
So yeah, one of the things
what I meant by that is that people are into climate change now, 10 years later or 12 years later.
Yeah.
When perhaps I don't know if they were or not, because we were absolutely, we were nobodies, and this was we had no money to pay them, so we had to find a major actor or actress who would do it for climate change reasons.
Yeah.
And that was a lot harder to find 12 years ago. I think now you could.
Do you think? Do you think people would be up for it?
Yeah. I do.
And people
everybody's got it now, haven't they?
Yeah. Yeah. They get it.
Yeah. Although, I mean, Emma Thompson, I don't know if you saw, she went along to Extinction Rebellion and spoke out, and then got it in the neck about flying and all, being accused of being a hypocrite, which is interesting, I think, because if you follow that argument to the logical conclusion, it's like, okay, so if you yourself are contributing to the problem by flying or anything, then you're not allowed to speak on the issue.
Yeah.
So only people who are not contributing, but the only people who are not contributing are people who live like off-grid, vegan, generating their own power, that kind of thing. Those people are also not allowed to speak because they're weirdo hippies. Do you know what I mean? So basically what they're saying is nobody's allowed to speak. It's a way of
control.
Yes, and just intimidating people into not speaking at either end of the spectrum. So you need to be brave, like Emma Thompson is.
Yeah.
To speak anyway, and then take that flack, the inevitable flack, because I'm not saying she's a hypocrite. I'm saying she is living in the society which we have created, which means that to go about your ordinary life, we all cause climate change all the time, and what we have to do is completely make a new society in which that doesn't happen. And so obviously Emma Thompson is somebody within that society who is part of the problem, and so if she speaks out, she will get attacked, but good for her for speaking out.
Absolutely,
yeah.
So where we might have moved from, one of the things you said in I think it was in this recent sort of anniversary film you did with The Guardian, was you mentioned a turbine being a symbol of hope, and it just popped out, and then I think the chap you were filming with sort of criticised you a little bit.
I liked what he said there, it was funny.
What did he say?
He said it's not a symbol of hope, it's the actual it's the actual thing. Yeah, it's
absolutely.
Not a symbol.
And we're kind of past that, aren't we? We are past I think
needing symbols of hope.
Well, interestingly, so what we're doing, certainly what you do, and I'm aspiring to maybe, is to show symbols. But actually, it's a bit late. We need practical stuff actually there. Which leads on
to my next program, my next film.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to hear what it is?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I'm doing it with Tom Walker, the comedian whose character is Jonathan Pye.
Right. Yeah.
Like him?
Yeah. For sure. It's great.
He divides people.
Yeah,
Obviously, I'm a mega fan. He and I are doing this thing called 10 Years to Net Zero.
Right.
Which stars Jonathan Pye, the character.
Oh, does it? Cool.
Basically showing how Britain gets to net zero. Right. Which is what we need to do and have now committed to do by 2050. But in our film, we're going to do it by 2030. And it's going to be all positive because not because one of the criticisms, but one of the criticisms of Age of Stupid, it is I Have a Nightmare. Yeah. It's showing the catastrophe, the apocalypse that's coming if we don't act. Yeah. And so now we're going to do it the other way around, not because I think that was wrong, but as another way, which is showing the positivity that comes once you start making steps. Right. And I don't mean little steps like recycling, I mean major societal level changes. And so, we're going to be going and we're going to be showing all the positive things that are happening. Oh, great. Yeah. Great, cool. In to show that everything we need to do, we've already got in terms of technology, and we already are doing in that somebody somewhere is doing it. We've just got to scale up extremely fast. Yeah, right. So that's the idea, that we show all the things, but then we also show the scale up that needs to happen, if you see what I mean. Yeah. So that's it. That's our plan. Wow, very cool. And we want to do it fast, actually. So unlike Age of Stupid. In a year. A year? Within a year. Finish it within a year. Yeah, he's great. Yeah. I really love. I do too. And I love how people kind of laugh and cheer and then think, oh shit, I just got caught out. Exactly. Brilliant. Brilliant. Really, how exciting. Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. There you are. You're first to hear it. Well, oh, really? Thank you. Top 10 to hear it. So, so the whole thing at the moment, there's a couple of things. So the first one is one of my faves, documentary filmmakers is Frederick Wiseman. And I just wanted, the first thing he said, he was quoted, and my father-in-law buys it, not me, but in the Telegraph, he threw it to me, and Wiseman said, if I was interested in effecting political change, I would have gone into politics, because I don't think movies change anything. Some people see one-to-one relationship between a book or a movie and social change, and I think that's incredibly naive. And disagree. Yeah, me too. I disagree totally. I mean, as I said, when in my early 20s, I had that experience of being involved in the McLibel trial and seeing things change all around us. Yeah. You know, we'd be walking down the street and we'd see that McDonald's had, got organic, milk or whatever. We were seeing it change as we were working. So yeah, I completely disagree. But that kind of, like, within the sort of entrenched filmmakers and maybe creators, there is that sort of it doesn't do it. It's observational. It's take from it what you will. But actually, for me, the reason, like, we're having a chat, which is awesome, thank you again, is because I think it does. We have an opportunity to use the technology now that means we can watch anything on our films whenever. It's mad. We can film and do it live, and everything else. I think it's just a tool. Filmmaking now is, of course, it's just so tool. Blurred, right? Yeah. Here's an example for you. Yeah. So in February, I had this idea to make a trailer to promote the re-release of Age of Stupid. Right. And we had this idea to set it on a parallel universe where they were tackling climate change. This film is now finished. It's called What If. It's out if you want to see it. It's like an 8-minute short. Yep. Anyway, so the idea was, this is February, we thought what we'll do in the parallel universe, we'll persuade politicians stuff to be in it, and Ed Miliband was in it, and Caroline Lucas. And in the parallel universe, the UK Parliament will declare a climate emergency, and that will be the start of everything that follows, that shows how we could get out of this mess. And by, I think it was, when was Extinction Rebellion, which I had nothing to do with, was like March, April, wasn't it? Yep. And they, shut down London brilliantly. And by, was it April or May? I'm rubbish at dates. The UK government did declare a climate emergency. London, and then, that was 6 weeks from when I had thought, this is a completely outlandish idea that the UK government would declare a climate emergency. And I'm not saying we caused it, because we didn't. Extinction Rebellion did, and the climate strikers. Sure. But that's how fast society can change with the power of, people who took to the streets, but also all the media.
Yeah.
And all the decades work of the Greenpeaces and all the scientists and all the academics and all the people who've been building up
financial and sort of advice. No, the advisors to finance.
I was going to say the finance people. No, they didn't have. No, but there was the build up ever since we've known about climate change in the 60s, 70s, 80s.
Yeah.
The build up, and then it went from it was an impossibility. It was a joke that the UK would declare climate emergency in February. I need to get the real dates. Was it May, March, whenever they declared it? And
okay, so using that then, like I'm interested to know, are you still using the term climate change, or are you saying climate emergency now? Are you saying Extinction Rebellion? Because for me that's a really big thing. Yeah, for me it is, because I think climate change, and there's all sorts of stuff out there, you can read about it, but there was real concerted effort to keep it as climate change. Yeah. Because it's just change. We used to change. That's what we have to deal with. Yeah. How are you sort of sensing that?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting how it changes, because it was greenhouse effect when I was a kid. Then it was global warming. Then it was climate change. And when we were writing Age of Stupid in 2007, we were discussing whether to refer to it as climate change, and we were discussing what people in the future would call it. And this is a mistake in Age of Stupid, because we had these discussions. Basically, we didn't finish the discussion. There were so many things going on, and it just kind of slipped through as climate change.
Right.
Because there was, should we call it the breakdown? The end, the crisis. What would people in the future refer to it as now? And it just slipped through the net. We didn't conclude the discussion. The shooting was happening the next day. There was 85,000 things to organise. Yeah. And I didn't manage to come up with so that was a mistake then.
Right.
So it is in Age of Stupid. It is climate change.
Yeah.
Even though we knew then it shouldn't be.
Right.
So I go along with, as with many things, I go along with George Monbiot, who says climate breakdown is what we should call it.
Yeah.
So I go along with him, really.
Right. Yeah. Good authority.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of what's in Age of Stupid is George's thinking from his articles and books and interviews and just talking to him.
Yeah.
That's one of my roles I see, is like people, not just George, but very many extremely clever, much cleverer than me people out there, coming up with these ideas, right? Clarifying the ideas. And then I take the ideas and I put them in a popular form that people who are never going to read those articles will then watch, and I'm like the mediator between those people. That's how I see my role, partly.
And great. And I reckon, so in terms of, that's what I feel like's next. So the next film that you're making, which sounds very exciting, that's good about, I suppose, the budget, the time investment will be less well, not necessarily budget, but the time commitment.
Definitely.
So, because in my mind, it's almost like if The Age of Stupid was 2009, again, sort of encouraged again 10 years later, it's almost as if we need stuff every 10 days, not every 10 years. How do we get to that point?
Well, that is a very good point, because I remember Tony Juniper, who is the former Friends of the Earth guy, and he was the chair of our thing, 1010, and now he's running Natural England. He's one of the big figures in the environmental movement in the UK. He said to me, after the disaster of Copenhagen the UN Climate Summit, which was 8 months after Age of Stupid, he said, these things come in cycles. Copenhagen was the peak. It's now going to have a catastrophic fall in interest in climate change.
Right.
And then all we can all do is keep working away, building up.
Yeah.
Wait for the wave to come back up again, or the cycle to come back again, and then when it peaks again, be ready. And then that's when it will come around again. And that is what's happened. It's taken 10 years, and now climate change is back on. But the key. Yeah. We mustn't let that happen again. We have to keep the wave peaking, or whatever the surfing analogy would be. Do you know what I mean?
We mustn't.
Yeah,
keep the cadence.
Okay, whatever. You do the bikes, I do the surfing. We have to keep on top of the wave, And Michael Moore has this really nice thought, which is a choir. So if a choir has to sing a very, very long note, which is longer than any one person can hold their breath, then all that every individual person has to do is sing as long as they can, and then take a breath, and then start singing again. And the overall effect will be it never stops. but each individual person just does what they can and has a rest when they need it. And I think that's exactly right. We have to keep the wave going by everybody who can see what's happening, which should be everybody. Contributing what they can contribute, having a pause, and then contributing again, and trying to keep the wave going. I actually think it will, because something else, an external factor, has now come in as well, which will keep the wave going, which is the impacts of climate change are way faster, way worse, way quicker than I think was anticipated. Well, it was anticipated, but it was on the worst end scenario.
Well,
and so nobody can, it's happening to us all every day now. So
and interesting, the climate scientists I was away in Svalbard with, they were saying everything we're told in the media is 4 times worse. So it's going to happen 4 times quicker.
Yeah.
The damage is going to be 4 times worse.
Yeah.
The movement of people is going to be 4 times.
Yeah.
And why are we not hearing that?
Yeah, yeah.
So we need to get moving.
Yeah, we do. When we wrote Age of Stupid, the climate science was developed by the scenario I developed with Mark Linus, our climate change guy, and based on the IPCC reports.
Yeah.
And we decided that we needed the time at which the world was devastated to be within the lifespan of like my generation. So it needed to be not too far in the future, but we wanted it to be really, really bad for the film, dramatically.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we decided on the date 2055 as a reasonable, and that was the middle of the projections. It wasn't the worst and it wasn't the best,
right?
Because we didn't want to be accused of alarmism.
Sure.
And in fact, when the film came out, then the Met Office, Professor Richard Betts from the Met Office came and said, he endorsed it. He said, yes, the science is
right.
You're right, basically.
Yeah.
But now, only 10 years later, what we put in Age of Stupid, that complete devastation by 2055, is, if anything, we've underplayed it.
Yeah.
How old will you be in 2055?
75.
Yeah, my kids will be 40s.
Yeah.
And we're underplaying it. Age of Stupid, which is complete apocalypse, is underplaying it, and my children will be in their 40s, which is my age. Yeah, so plenty of work to do. Keep the wave going.
Yeah, thank you. Well, finish on a low.
On a high point. I'll finish on a high point. See, one of the thoughts of our new film, 10 Years to Net Zero, is when there's a fire, a house is on fire or something, if people start running towards it with water, other people start running towards it with water. It's a contagious thing, whereas if everybody stands back, They don't, so the more people who can run towards climate change with water, in any sense, the more people will run towards climate change with water, I was having this argument with my partner, because now we live in the countryside, we have to have a car. I haven't had a car all my life, but then I made him move to Devon and now we have to have a car. Anyway, so I was arguing that we should get an electric car, and he was arguing that it costs too much money and, economic blah, blah. But I was saying, no, we should do it for climate change, never mind it, and it's not about us getting an electric car because that's going to save X amounts of emissions. It doesn't matter about X amounts of emissions. What matters is running towards the fire with water.
Right.
And, if we get an electric car, maybe 5 other people will get electric cars, or maybe 100 other people, or maybe the company in where we live that was thinking of setting up an electric car dealership, it will become economic for them to do it if we do it, for God's sake. We've got we're not so skint that we can't do it. Let's do it. Let's put the priority onto that, even if it doesn't make perfect economic sense. And I'm not slagging them off here.
And sometimes no, but sometimes you feel like the idiot with the bucket of water.
Of course.
And you feel
of course you do.
But it doesn't matter because we don't have a choice.
Of course you feel like the idiot, and not only that, but you feel embarrassed. And this is something that even I am trying to change.
Right.
I don't mean even. I mean, challenging people on a one-to-one level is so awkward. And it's so ingrained against us not to do that. But I've recently just thought, okay, for God's sake, butch up and start challenging people. But it makes just day-to-day interactions awkward if you challenge somebody on. Yeah, it does. On whatever, leaving the engine running, anything, eating meat every day of the week, whatever. But that's what I've changed recently is challenging people one-to-one, because I've always done it through films, but that's a way. And actually, it it's something I'm aware of, that I want to make films to challenge people, because I don't want to have awkward conversations with my family.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally do.
And make them watch my films.
Voted UKIP.
Exactly. Well, I don't know that. My granny, she's 100 years old, literally.
Wow.
She has voted Tory
Yeah.
every year since 1938, or whenever it was she first voted. This year she voted Green.
Wow.
Aged 100.
Cool.
Can you believe that?
Yeah, brilliant.
There you go. See, it is all changing.
It is changing.
Yeah, from Tory to Green.
Thanks, Franny.
No, you're welcome.
Awesome.
There you go. Random.